Hello, Mary.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
We saw a movie tonight
We've been
called.
seeing so many movies.
We've seen a lot of movies,
So many.
an insane amount. But tonight we saw Get Out, which we've been trying to see for I feel like
Since it came out a couple
since
weeks
it
ago.
came out. It is like everything has been getting in the way of us actually seeing this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, really, really.
I'm getting situated.
Mary decided that as soon as the podcast started, she wanted to move away from the microphone.
Well, I feel like it was in the pillow. And it bothered me.
That's fair.
I didn't want to mess it up.
But okay, so let's talk about it. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, how would you... what's fun about this is we haven't really had enough time to talk about it.
Yeah.
So we haven't really picked each other's brains about it.
Yeah. Get out of here with that shit.
Obviously spoilers.
Yeah. Every review analysis on this channel.
Spoilers.
Spoilers through and through.
Spoilers galore.
We're not holding back.
My first question is, how would you rate this film?
I give this movie a 10 out of 10.
Nice.
A perfect 10.
Nice. As a lot of the critics have been
No.
doing.
9.8.
Ooh, that point two though.
Yeah,
Why?
0.2.
Where'd that pop out of?
When they explain the stuff at the ending. Towards the ending.
Man, that's such a big...
I grade harsh.
That was so...
I grade harshly.
Okay. So you're saying that The Shining is better
Yes.
because it explains less.
Yes.
Okay. How about that part where they explained what The Shining is? Is that the same
That's
level?
fine.
Okay.
Because, I felt like...
The Shining is a lot more abstract, I guess, of a thing.
The only thing with Get Out and... Because, towards the end of the movie, they explain, kind of the point of the movie, which is fine, but it's, it kind of takes the fun out of it a little bit. In The Shining, when they explain it, it's just, they're explaining this thing that is not the point of the story.
Right,
but an
that's
aspect
true.
of the story.
Okay, I see. Good argument. I like it.
But yeah, no, other than that, I give this movie nearly a perfect score. Obviously, first, it was a directorial debut from Jordan Peele.
Yes, I'm so proud of him.
Cause I forgot if I was talking about it with you, but how they marketed this movie was really interesting because I feel like they didn't mention that it was made by Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Until the very right when it was about to release.
Yeah, just because I was familiar with his name already.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's Jordan Peele.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, oh yeah, you know how Jordan Peele directed this movie that's coming out, and people would be like, what? And yeah, that's a good point. Nobody really paid attention to that.
But I feel like it worked a lot because people because you know how it goes when you have a comedy writer.
Gone.
Yeah, anybody that goes outside of their wheelhouse in the media is just oh, well, that's not going to be good because they only do comedy.
Well, yeah, and I think something that both you and I felt from the beginning when we saw that it was coming out, and, of course we wanted to look at who the director was and stuff, I felt really solid with him being a comedian making a horror film.
Yeah.
As we've talked about before, is that I think that it's two sides of a spectrum, playing the same tropes. Because it's with comedy, people really undermine how smart you have to be a good comic.
For sure.
To write good work for that. You really do have to you have to have social commentary.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand things about people and how they work.
Yeah.
And you have to know what makes them laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think it's really hard to understand why people laugh at the things they do. I mean, I don't think anybody really has the answer to that.
Right.
Just the things that... What?
Nothing. Continue.
All right. And, the things that scare us. It makes logical sense, but at the same time, you don't really know why it scares us. You know that people are afraid of the unknown. We also are afraid of our own mortality and pain and suffering and all these things. But, you're playing around with the same things. Surprises, can be funny. Like, the unexpected can be funny.
Yeah.
The unexpected can be terrifying.
For sure.
So it's just playing with the same things, and I was not surprised that he did a phenomenal job at all.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you look back on, like, the Key and Peele, like, sketches, like, a lot of them are, like, really dark.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Like, I think one of my favorite ones is the, have you see the one where they're getting auctioned off as slaves?
Yes.
And they're, like, completely just, like, tearing down this guy because, like, at first they're, like, mad that they're in the position.
Right.
And then they're just like, man, what is this guy got? Because the guy's, like, super jacked and, like, just, like, ripped and everything. And they're all picking him over them. And they're just mad about it. Even though it should not be in any way.
It's great.
But, yeah, so he's very good at, like, he's he's not shy to writing really dark but like funny stuff at the same time.
Right. And this was funny. It had funny parts in it. It was much there was lots of times where the whole theater was laughing.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a while since I've seen a movie that made people laugh.
Yeah,
I've seen intense movies.
Yeah, you've been on a real kick of recent.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I felt the vibe of the theater was very, very strange to me when we were sitting there, because like we were watching the movie, but then like there would be points where like I felt like people were like nervously laughing because like they knew that it was like from Key and Peele, so they.
I was just about to say,
yeah, they were more open to laugh, and I think in a situation where they usually would not be.
Most definitely, because
there's
was
some
just
stuff
about to bring that up.
Yeah, because there's some stuff in the movie that was just like. Nothing particularly that funny happened, but people were just like laughing because like, oh, that must be funny. That was funny because this is a comedy thing.
Yeah.
It's okay to laugh at this part.
Right.
Where I feel like a lot of horror movies take themselves
too seriously.
So seriously, and it was so refreshing to see a horror movie with like actual like personality and not afraid to like actually tell a joke every once in a while.
Or like one of the interviews that I listened to with Jordan Peele was a pretty short one, but he said, and this kind of goes into the end, but I have a point, but that he was trying to do it where people made the most understandable decisions. Like this was a horror film where the main character was competent and was going to make human decisions and was going to do what he needed to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, by the end of the film, that definitely is true. But with that, he also brought a writing style where like people react realistically and they say funny things because you know it's fun to see movies that are all about just like the feel and so they don't crack a joke. There's no
there's no levity at all.
And sometimes that's what you're looking for, but you know, for instance with Jackie, which was a film that I saw a couple months ago, there's no, I mean, I understand it's about, you know, and it's about
tell a joke.
I mean, come on, it was not a big deal. She lost her husband, we lost a president.
God, that movie was mind-blowing.
Right. But like there was not one funny part in that movie.
Yeah, it takes itself so seriously.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, sometimes that's too much.
Yeah.
So it's human to like to laugh and stuff. And so I appreciated that like the dialogue of like the genuine people in the film was like very human, especially with his friends. It was nice for Jordan Peele to like make that character to be like, and this is what this character is. Yeah. And he's also the hero of the story.
Exactly.
Kind of.
And it's funny because like I felt it was not more scary, it's not grammatically correct, but it was scarier. It was scarier because like you kind of bounce between like, oh, that's funny, and then you go straight into like a really scary scene. So it's like with a horror movie that kind of takes itself too seriously and like goes like one tone all the way through, it's not as effective because you're just like you feel one way all throughout. But like when you have a movie like this where it takes like, oh, this was a funny part, ha ha ha, you're like in a sense of security. It's like, okay, nothing scary is happening, and then a scary thing happens, you're like, whoa, oh my god, that was crazy. That was I was not ready for that because
because I was too busy laughing.
I was too busy laughing, and I was scared. And that's what I really liked about this movie. And then also the writing was like amazing in this movie.
It was really interesting.
Like there were things I feel like in horror movies they're so blatant with their setup sometimes. Yeah. But I guess let's talk about the main character, Chris. played by Daniel K, as we will call him, because he has a very hard to say last name. And I did pull up the IMDb page, but I promptly closed my laptop because of technical difficulties, and I didn't want to hurt it or break it. But
we don't need to go into that on this podcast.
But so Chris, the main character, Chris, I thought his character was really interesting because I feel it would have been really easy to just really easy to just have this character be, oh, I'm black and I'm dealing with the situation, and it still would have worked to a degree.
Imagine just like making him human, because he was written by a fellow African American and got to like play an in-depth person. Yeah, it's crazy.
Daniel Kaluuya. This page did not help Eddie. I still was not able to.
Yeah.
Daniel Kaluuya. He's a British man, as I've been told.
He was born in London.
He's born in London.
He was in Black Mirror and Sicario, and he did a phenomenal job in both.
Bada bing, bada boom. But yeah, so it's good to see that he's actually getting a leading role this time around on a movie of this scale that's doing this well.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy for him. But his character was like, he actually had a character. He had reasons why he did certain things. Like in the beginning, where they're driving to the house and he hits the deer, right? He's like, when they go and hit the deer and like they find out that it's on the side of the road like dying, and then like part of him's like, it's like, oh, maybe it's fine, and there's like a funny moment where it's just like, like the deer is like just like crying for like so long,
yeah,
and then he's just like, damn it, because like he knows that he doesn't want to do it, but because of things that happened to him in his past that are revealed later on in the movie, you understand later why he went and did that, because he has a post-traumatic like thing with not having closure.
Yeah. And he has that nightmare about it where like the sound like haunts him.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I thought was really interesting.
Deer.
And then they had the what else was happening? They had the he actually had things that he liked to do, like photography, which set up not really set up, but like sets up in a way why he took a picture of the guy.
Yeah.
You know,
it reminded me of Rear Window, and I don't know if it was a purposeful throwback to that. I'm sure probably reaching for straws, but I mean, in Rear Window, spoilers if you haven't seen that movie, James Boy, Jimmy Stewart, is able to save himself through flash photography.
Yeah.
And like that's how he doesn't die.
Yeah.
And like same in this story.
There's even like not a shot that's reminiscent, but like a part of like kind of like a foreshadowing bit where you remember he's taking pictures outside at like the meeting, the gathering or whatever with the family, and then the dad like points at him as he's taking the picture. Where it's just like this is kind of like his bit of like, oh, he's like kind of like getting to know his surroundings through this like barrier that is a camera, and then like their father's just like kind of breaking that in a sense.
Yeah, he's trying to get him to stop doing it.
Yeah. He knows that it will mess things up.
I also really liked that there was something about how he couldn't, like, because he almost took a picture of the maid so many times, Georgina, but he doesn't, and you're like, okay,
like
obviously there's something up. Also, that actress was phenomenal. So scary.
I was talking to Mary about this earlier, but she reminds me of another actress I cannot remember the name of, but she looks so much like this actress who does amazing work. And everyone's performance in this was amazing, but she was definitely one of the standouts.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Even with such little screen time and so little lines. Like, she told such a story.
Oh, yeah.
Through her eyes and her emotions and just emoting in general.
Yeah. I want to get back to her for sure, because like she was such an interesting character. But I also think like it was really cool that they chose the moment for him to use the flash photography when he did.
Yeah.
I also really like that they didn't they didn't like just lose the moment. Like he's like, oh shit, like that
Yeah.
moment where you actually take a picture and your
where it's,
flash
like,
goes off and you're like, damn.
happens all the time. It's like, damn it.
Yeah, but like everything else is like super still, but he's still, I think it's very much this, there's this juxtaposition between like him always being this very real character
Mm-hmm.
and then everyone else kind of being these zombies around him. Like
Yeah.
when he walks up the stairs and all of the guests in the house
Mm-hmm.
stop and just like listen and watch for him and stuff, like this very inhuman thing,
Yeah.
when that's what they're trying to project onto him and turn him into this very objected
Mm-hmm.
inhuman thing where he has so little of himself left,
Yeah.
where like he's just this force that refuses to do that, like
Mm-hmm.
continuously through the film, like there's not one moment where he's not just extremely human.
Yeah, exactly. And like he's like actively trying to not solve, but like actively trying to like solve his
To preserve himself.
to
Yeah.
save it. Like he's constantly on the like the defense
Right.
the entire time, which I thought was a very interesting way to take it, because like a lot of people are talking about how this movie is, people are getting divisive over it because people are saying
Oh,
like
shockers.
this, yeah, right. But people are saying like this is the perfect movie to explain like what it's like to be black in a sense,
Yeah.
and like dealing with racism. Because
What
like,
are they divided on? What are they saying?
oh, well, some people are saying like it's anti-white and it's like and all this and all that, and you know it's whatever. But I could I definitely agree with the sense where it's like, even from the start of the movie with the intro with what is this guy's name? He's from Atlanta. Lakeith
There.
Stanfield.
Let's see.
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, Lakeith
he's
Stanfield.
cool, man.
From the beginning of the movie, where it's like he's just walking down a street, like in a neighborhood, and he sees this car, like not follow him, but like pass him, and he's just like immediate. He's just like, oh, this isn't gonna be good, and
Yeah.
and it's like this movie, I feel is like obviously like it's an extreme, like it's a dramatization of things, but it's like it puts in perspective of just like that constant like paranoia where it's like even though you're doing nothing wrong, like he wasn't doing anything wrong, he still feels that like, oh, at any moment someone could just come up on me for no reason.
Right. It's the same thing that, like, similar to what women have to do to like keep from being raped. Like there's little things that you do that you don't even realize or that you worry about. Like if you're by yourself, you see someone that looks like they could be threatening, like walking up on the street, like you'll change, sides of the street.
Yeah.
Like and also whenever they get pulled over, sorry, they don't get pulled over, they hit the deer, and so the police comes and helps, which later on I assume is just like a setup. But Chris just stands to the side and like doesn't even go and talk to the cop until the cop is like, hey, give me your license. Like he's like, nah, I'm not gonna deal with that. And that's something, as like from my perspective, it wasn't until like I really got like older that I realized that that's a genuine fear that you have, like that I have no idea what that's like, and so I think that was like, there was very little, like there's little things that I feel like really did as a white person, like it's like, oh man, that must be terrible. And I also really liked how it was showing that like is as you were saying, it is a dramatization, of course, but it is also how much slavery does affect how people treat each other today. And that is very important. I think that it's a dire time to have a film like that made, because that needs to be shown that slavery is not a part of the past. It is a part of how white people treat black people and how black people have to live, and to act like it's not fair to anyone involved.
Well, it's one of those things where obviously this movie has a lot to deal with race for sure, and I feel like for an example, during the scene with the cop, knowing what we know now about Allison Williams' character, it could be seen in definitely a different light, but in the assumption that she is just purely trying to like like halt a bad situation. Her kind of ignorance to the situation is also very telling.
Yeah, you were like you were squirming in the seat next to me when she was like, "No, he's not going to give you the license," and you were like, "Please don't do that."
Where it's like you don't understand, like
right.
like that's like I feel like a situation that happens so often,
right? Where it's like the white person's like, "I will come to the rescue for you," and it's like, "But don't, because like, you don't know, and you're destructive."
Yeah, it's like she doesn't understand the gravity of the situation because to her, well, at least her at this perception
as you know her then,
as you know her then, she's just like a privileged like white girl, and not to say that in a negative way, but like that's like the way that she lived, and like she gets to talk like that.
Yeah, as I said,
police officer, and gets that kind of freedom of being able to speak her mind. But like I feel, and then obviously you feel, and then Chris in that scene feels like, oh God, why are you doing this? This is so, we don't need to do this.
Right. Well, as you see, like as her character, how you perceive her in that scene for the first time viewing it is like similar to how I was saying. Like I was like that at a point, and it's still something that I think is a subconscious thing because you don't realize the extent that your privilege goes.
Yeah.
And how other people don't have it, how it doesn't extend to other people sometimes.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that. But one thing, going back to how you said that people were really divided on it, I think that it's one of the things that was cool about what the interview with Jordan Peele that I listened to. He was saying he was inspired by movies like Rosemary's Baby that were like these very feminist films that were showing how it was like to be a woman and the restraints that women go through and the dominance and abuse. And he watched those, he grew up on them, and he realized through these films that he could make a movie that was similar about race, and that maybe when you left it, you know, like when he watched those movies, he was like, you know, I wasn't like, oh man, I'm a man and I'm bad and I suck. He was like, oh man, like, go her. Yeah. And you're rooting for this character, and that's how you feel. Like, you want Chris to survive so much.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, people are going to be divided, and race is one of those things that people are going to be very segregated on. But that was not the intent. And but it's hard to acknowledge like your privilege and your the like amount of history that goes into where you're at now.
And another part of this that was really interesting was the fact that Jordan Peele himself is mixed, right? He is I want to say half white and half black.
I have no
idea. He himself is mixed, and so is Keegan-Michael Key as well. Okay. They're both mixed, and that's, I think, I remember hearing that's why they got along so well, and that's how they started Key and Peele. But he is mixed himself. He is married to Chelsea Peretti, who is a white female comic. So I felt like a lot of this movie centered around kind of floating between those worlds. Because not to make it about myself, but like I grew up in like a mostly white, like suburban like home as a black person, and you definitely do feel that like kind of like you kind of feel in between in both worlds, like you never really like have one foot set in one specific place. And I thought that was really interesting because he kind of treated it like with the people that the groundskeepers and the people that were helping around the house. Like I felt like he was saying that those are the people that like kind of threw themselves into that world in a sense, or at least being kind of like mind controlled or brainwashed.
That was in
by that world.
Yeah, that was definitely something that I was thinking about throughout the film, was that representation of, and I don't know if I could go as far as to say that, I mean, Samuel L. Jackson's character in Django Unchained is very similar to like completely abandoning your race to like fall into to like to to gain that privilege, you cannot be black, even if you are. Like, you have to be as white as you can possibly be through your actions. It's like that. I think that idea was really interesting with how they, with the groundskeepers, and that idea of these old white people, white privileged people, like, putting themselves into these African Americans. Yeah. Literally.
Well, I feel like, let's talk about the actual family dynamic right now, because I feel it's probably a good segue point into it. So, the first characters we meet are, was it the mom and the dad?
Yeah.
And at least to me, at first, this was a really cool, I feel, bait and switch thing. I thought the dad was going to be the main antagonist of the movie, just because he was, like, the loudest and, like, the most, like, feelingly overly compensating of the family.
Yeah, but it's those sneaky races.
Yeah, sneaky races. Well, that'll come into it too,
yeah.
Right? But so you meet the dad, and then you meet the mom, who's, like, really nice and kind of, like,
trying to keep the dad in check.
So, and, like, you think it's like, oh, okay, it's just, like, you know, it's brand, like, oh, she's always right, like, classic, like, Norwell, like what Norman Rockwell, Norman Rockwell, the 50s, like, Leave It to Beaver style of, like,
yeah.
family dynamics. Like,
I was thinking Norman Bates for some reason.
Oh yeah, no. But so you think it's like, okay, this is normal, and then the brother comes home, which I have a big quarrel with this. I asked you about this in the theater, but the brother comes home and he is, like, really just plain douchebag, like, straight up douchebag.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, he has a different accent than the rest of the family. Which I still Mary just pulled up a picture of this gentleman, and he has a poor IMDb profile picture. I will see.
Pretty.
I will see if I can put this up at this point during the podcast here, but yeah, then you meet his character, who.
Can we have a side note?
Sure.
He's Banshee from X-Men First Class, guys.
Banshee.
For any of y'all that was staring at him and, like, he looks familiar.
In case you were wondering.
Hey, he's the ginger boy from First Class.
Hey, in case you were wondering, hey, is that Banshee from a X-Men First Class 2011 classic?
Anyway.
But yeah, so, like, you meet him and he's, like, you know, very aggressive. Like, he's talking about, like, MMA and, like, trying to do holds with Chris and, like, wrestle with him.
As I said, he's, like, in the theater, I thought he is Leonardo DiCaprio's character from Django modern day. Not to keep on bringing Django into this, I'll stop. But,
okay.
You know, because he's always, like, a very
aggressive.
Yeah, like,
sure.
I really want to just fight.
I don't understand why he has a different accent than the rest of the family.
Listen, a lot of people have different accents than the rest of their family. I think it's just showing that he's, like, a part of that, like, rougher crowd.
Maybe.
There is a point to it, don't you?
I'm sure there is.
Don't you question it?
I'm sure there is.
That's what I would think, is that it's showing that he's, like, been in these crowds of, like, wrestlers and, like, all different world things, whereas his family is very proper and he's, like, this wild animal that's just, like...
kind of untamed a little bit.
Yeah.
But so, like, he comes in and then you're thinking, okay, maybe it's him. Maybe he's the antagonist. He's the most aggressive. He's the most, like, trying to be the dominant in the situation.
Yeah.
But it's revealed later on that the mother is clearly going to be the main antagonist for this movie, because I forget, she does something at the dinner scene where she tells someone to do something and they kind of, like, do it in, like, a weird way. She
tells the son to sit down and leave Chris alone.
Yeah, and then he was just like, I wasn't gonna hurt him. Like, he's, like, on, like, this auto, like, pilot thing, but, like, he's still communicating.
Yeah, like, and it's like, also resistant. Like, she might have telepathically been like, don't hurt him, and he was like, I wasn't going to.
Yeah. God. Which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I definitely felt from the trailers that I knew she was going to be
Why
the
do you
main
say
antagonist.
that? I didn't see many of the trailers for this, so
There's just the part where she says "sink into the floor," and she's like has her. There's a part in the trailer where she's like, "Do you smoke in front of my daughter?" And then she's like, "Sink into the floor." And as soon as they said that she was a therapist and she had they start about her hypnosis, I was like, there it is.
Okay, so I guess like the main. Well, I guess like as it goes on, the main the
main antagonist.
The main antagonist. They get to, as that scene goes on, they go into, I think was it Chris and what's her name? Allison Williams' character, Rose. Chris and Rose go to bed, and then Chris goes outside to smoke.
Yeah. And it gets crazy.
Yeah, so he goes outside. Oh yeah, I forget there's stuff that goes on outside. So he goes outside to smoke, and what happens? Like
he goes outside and he sees the maid in her room, like she's looking at her reflection in the window, and she's like touching her face and smiling, and then she disappears. And then the other servant is running, and he runs right at Chris. Yeah. And then he turns, like, right before he hits Chris. Yeah. And Chris is like, I'm definitely going back inside the house now. Yeah. And then he goes back inside the house, and the mother is in her study where the husband, earlier when he's giving Chris the tour, is like, that's where my wife takes patients. Yeah. And she's in her office room, basically, and it's like, please sit down with me. Yeah. How'd your mom die? And like that really, I was just like, nobody gets to ask that. Yeah, you jerk.
Yeah, and then he kind of is very resistant, and I'm trying to remember. I guess it was the point where she started spitting the cup.
The spoon.
The spoon in the teacup, because she was talking about like how sometimes they use like focal points.
Yes.
To like
focus in on one thing.
Hypersuggestion or whatever she called it in the movie. But yeah, at that point, it's like clear that she's kind of like doing what she's apparently done to like all these people at work on like the property and stuff like that, and that's where we finally experience like the sinking into the floor, which seems to be like just this like other realm where like she's like trapping these people inside their minds.
You're paralyzed.
Yeah, you can only see what's happening. You can't really control anything that's happening in your body, which I thought was like really cool imagery, which was
it was
another reason I feel like this movie stood out. It felt like very it had very unique imagery when it wanted to, and I appreciated that.
And it didn't do it too, it wasn't trying to be some weird it didn't go too far for what it was.
It felt everything felt,
which I respect
natural.
When people want to like really experiment, and that's really cool, but for a movie that is getting this type of box office hits, like it's not gonna have that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, then that happens, and then the rest of the movie kind of like sets in place where he's trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, first because the way that that's edited is that he falls asleep and then he wakes up. Like after she hypnotizes him, so it's like, oh, it could have been a dream. Yeah. And then he goes and he's walking around the grounds, and he goes and talks to the servant and is like, hey man, like how's it going? Yeah. And then he's like, sorry that I scared you last night. Yeah. I was working out.
Yeah, like very rehearsed.
Yeah, very. The acting for the people that were hypnotized was so good.
Yeah, and I thought that was another interesting point, too, because like I feel like the Black community, especially, there's a thing like like known as like talking white, which is like another like point into the assimilation of the people on the property, where it's like it's just like another reason of like, oh, there's this culture, but to be accepted in, you kind of have to like put on a voice, which like Chris kind of like does throughout the movie, which I thought was like a very nice touch, where when he's talking with his friend who's also Black, he talks in a certain type of way, and like kind of like loosens up a bit. But when he's talking with Rose, he's very like proper and like not like
it's like middle ground.
Yeah, it's not to the point where it's like the people on the property, but like it's definitely like a clear difference in cadence for sure, which I thought was a really cool touch.
Yeah. I liked your point about when we were in the car.
Mm-hmm.
You were saying that it's also how white culture only takes on like aspects of black culture when it's convenient.
Yeah.
So you want to go into that?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I guess I'll start with the mom because I have theories about the mom too, or like the way I perceived it. So the mom, to me, at least the way I saw it during the movie, was she was kind of the representation of white media and white culture, or we could take not race out of it, but like make it like a more broad thing, like American culture and American media, because she is kind of like, her whole deal is that she wants to ultimately understand Chris, and Chris is kind of being very like, like combatant of it, and the whole thing that I saw was like it's about like control, and she controls everyone on the branch. She controls everyone, like she is in control, complete control, like the media also wants to be, and also like culture wants to be. But help me. It was a flow of consciousness, really.
Oh no, yeah.
If you want to say what I said earlier.
Oh no, you're good. I just how there's certain things like that white culture is like, oh, rap music and certain terminology and dressing a certain way is like really cool, but when it comes to like trying to make I don't want to say when it comes to trying to make the situation better, because I do think people do try, but when it comes to going and helping like African Americans and going to like marches for them and like Black Lives Matter and stuff, like white people do help, but it's like this idea that like as a whole, as a group, not as individuals and all of them, but like as a majority, a lot of it is this idea that like you only take on what's convenient for you.
I think what I said in the car was like, everyone wants to be black until it's time to be black, where it's like and what I meant by that was like very like, like everyone, all fucking suburban kids love to listen to rap and talk about like, oh, that's so hard, that's so street, and like they idolize this like life that is like, it's a weird like vicious cycle where it's like these kids are idolizing this life, but the people on the streets, is like, there's a quote from a rap song, I think it was a Childish Gambino song, where it's just like, no one wants to be on the block, like, do you think the people on the block want to be on the block? No, they want to be like, somewhere else. They want to be where the suburban kids are, not in the sense like they want to live there, but they want to be in that stature where it's like they don't have to like fear for their lives. You
want a life of not that, so like as a human being,
it's like one of those things where it's just like these white culture or suburban culture or American culture like wants to take on, like, oh, that's so cool, that's so chic, that's so fun, that's so cool,
edgy,
it's hip, it's whatever, from black culture, but when it comes to like racial profiling and like having to deal with like actual issues with actually being African American in America, it's like they're just like, oh, well, you guys got that, which
most
is
definitely
I felt was really prevalent in this movie, and I was a little bummed out that they kind of explained it out, like they kind of,
I don't feel like they explained it too much.
They didn't explain it too much, but it was just like, I felt like a line or two, like more than it needed. It was
definitely like, the villain is not going to tell you what this has all been about. For like 2 seconds.
That
and
was
then
like,
they were like,
that was the only time I feel like I was taken out of the movie. I was just like, okay.
I definitely had that moment too.
Cool.
Yeah.
But
and one thing that going with I think especially the party scene when they're going to meeting each person and like having to deal with the little things that they're saying.
Oh yeah, that scene, yeah.
Which was comical. I feel like Jordan. I feel like Jordan. I mean, very realistic. But Jordan Peele, I feel like, was just like, let me just write down everything that anyone has ever said to me and put it in this scene.
Oh my god,
like that. All of, like that people.
All
can,
that seemed too familiar.
Yeah,
I will say.
Totally. Yeah, and this book that I read called Citizen: An American Lyric is such a powerful book, and it has this. It deals with racism specifically in America, and there's these beautiful segments in the book where it's like a stream of consciousness where it's someone's mind like reacting to a really racist comment, and it's like, did you just say that? Did I just hear that? And so it's these little things, and I think whenever you see the people that are hypnotized trying so hard to say something, I think on a much as again a dramatization, but it's like this idea that constantly you're put in these very frustrating situations where you're not supposed to say anything because you're not supposed to acknowledge that that's not okay to say, or you don't want to be the person that's like so touchy and stuff, so you have to fight it back. You have to fight back, not pointing that out and not saying like, hey man, like you can't say things like that, that's actually really really rude. And you know, so I think the moments when they were trying so hard, obviously to fight for their lives, but like to fight, like when you have to fight for your blackness but you feel like you can't, like you have to fight for your culture and for who you are in that moment, or you have to fight back saying something, you know, you're at war with yourself. And I think dealing with like what black culture is in a white culture, like a dominantly white culture, because it's not that it's like more, it's just like white is dominant. It is like the 1%.
Yeah, well, it's the thing is like white, at least right now, is like the default culture, which is, you know, it's not like, you know, personally like a bad thing, but it's like, it's a lack of understanding of another culture. Because I feel like we're getting into this wave now where, again, personally growing up in like, you know, like small town, suburban small town, like you kind of get that fetishization of black culture, because like in my town I think I was one of maybe 5 families, you know, that were like actually like black. So I was like, I was in theater, so I was like the only black guy in theater. So like I was like I was the niche of the niche in my school. So like I didn't get like, it was weird because like I feel like I didn't get bullied to an extent, but like I feel like I was still treated as other, because I was, you know, like I was different, even though to me I was just like, what's different about me, like what am, like, you know, like what's wrong. But people, American culture kind of like has this thing where they see a black person and they're like, oh, that must be so cool, that must be so hip, you must have like a huge penis and play basketball. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been asked like, oh, do you play basketball, or like what sport do you play? I was just like, I'm too uncoordinated to play any sport, so I just talk about movies on a podcast. But no, it's this whole thing like in the I'm gonna just call it the cookout scene, even though there was no cookout. In the family gathering scene, where they're all asking like, oh, was it black is in fashion, or when the aunt, I'm not even sure if it was her aunt, but she looked like an aunt.
She like feels his muscle.
Yeah, like comes up to him and just treats him like literally like a piece of meat. It's just like, oh wow, this is so, oh my gosh. And like, and even Rose, before like she has her character turn towards the end, like fetishes, like treats him to an extent as like, oh wow, that's so dangerous. It's so like, you know, it's so crazy that I'm dating a black guy, or you know what I mean?
I think, yeah, I really wanted to dive into her character because I think it's like certain people that will just be like, oh, I don't see race and my family's not racist.
Yeah.
Where, you know, sometimes like you kind of have to acknowledge that maybe your family's a little racist. Like maybe your uncle is uncomfortable to be around. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, because I think when I was a lot younger, growing up in West Texas, which in a very, very wide area.
Mm-hmm.
It was that I was taught, I feel, that it was wrong to point out differences, and it was so pointing out like being aware of racism would be pointing out a difference.
Yeah.
And so when I was younger, I was like very uncomfortable for me to be like, oh yes, race is a thing, and you know, you could be like, oh, I don't see color, and it's like, oh, like I cringe thinking about that. And I was like 14.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, that's bad. That's not okay.
Yeah.
You can't be like that. And I think she's a representation of even when she was perceived as good.
Yeah.
She was still like this continuation of like, oh, but it's not a problem, or even like being she wasn't belittling, but like wasn't even empathetic to him being like, does your family know? Like, I'm kind of worried. Like, wasn't even...
Or even like, with the cop situation, she was just like, this is fine. Everything I'm doing is okay, even though this could mean life or death for him.
Yeah. And also, I mean, after that, he was like, oh, that was hot and stuff. Like, and I think it's almost like, again, like this idea that it's like... oh yeah, like the white person needs to come to the rescue. And I really liked that he didn't allow for that in any way. Like even her character didn't have, because there was a minute when he finds this box that has pictures of her with all of the
the kind of like big reveal for her,
right, is that she has pictures with all the servants of them looking normal and like being her significant other. And so you're like, oh, okay, so maybe she's being hypnotized and then brainwashed. Was my first thought.
Same.
And which was such a great twist that it wasn't at all.
She was kind of like the lore.
And I appreciate that. Like he didn't get, because then in a way it kind of would have handed like, oh yeah, she's still like that innocent good girl that like was falling victim to her family. So I'm really glad that wasn't the case. But it is, I do think that was portraying like this idea of these unaware people that are going around that are like, oh no, like I'm the saint that doesn't see color. And it's like, okay, but you're not actually helping anything.
Like it's not solving the issue.
Right. Like to solve the issue, you have to acknowledge the issue.
I'm trying to think. So do we want to talk about the ending?
Let's talk about the ending.
So beginning of the third act, Chris is trapped by the family.
He's like, give me those keys though.
They have this big thing where like they're trying to get out of the house, and then the mom is downstairs with the dad and then the brother, and they're kind of like cornering Chris, and then Chris is like talking to Rose like, come on, like let's get the keys. And that goes on for a while, and then it's revealed that Rose is completely in on it, like the entire time, which I thought was a really cool twist.
I appreciated that.
And from that point on, the movie kind of goes into like it turns like very classic horror. At that point, where things become like a lot less subtle. It's like it's on, which really cool. Like it was a nice.
I appreciated that reveal moment because you really felt like Chris in that moment, because you felt that betrayal that he must have been feeling.
Like what the fuck?
It's like, oh man, there was like an hour ago we were saying I love you and talking about my dead mom, but guess that doesn't mean anything.
Now I'll be strapped to a chair in the basement.
I know this is jumping way forward, but I really appreciated his face at the end when she was like dying on the road and she's like, I love you, it's really me, and he was like, oh, brother. Like,
oh my god. So we'll get to that in a second. But so he's trapped in the basement, and long story short, he's being brainwashed by the blind artist, right? Who is talking about how he wants his eyes, which is a part of the objectification. Of, like the symbolism of objectification, where everyone is kind of wanting like a different part of Chris. Like they want just control over him and like to be able to like use what is different about him for their own personal gain. Right.
What do you think? Why do you think he was blind? Why do you think that was, like this thing where he like couldn't see like race? Literally.
It could be that. I'm sure.
No,
that
sorry, that wasn't like the answer. I didn't like. I was wondering like why you think that was the decision that was made.
I'm sure that probably has something to play into it. Personally, I just felt it like was just a way to like kind of like make him different, non-threatening, and then also like endearing, that he has like a story about like, you know, he's an artist that can't see anymore, and like a way to relate to Chris on some level, to put him in like some false sense of security.
Yeah.
So at the end where it's revealed that he is just equally as a part of it, which would make sense because he's at this, like, he's at the thing with everybody, like, you know, like it's,
he wins him in the auction.
yeah.
I think maybe I'm between two ideas here, where maybe it's because it's because people will just use you no matter what to get what they want the most in this world. So some people want luxury, they want people doing things for them, they want to ignore their privilege and like keep things the way that they have, quote unquote, have been. And also maybe that, I mean, obviously he went blind, so he you're right, but maybe it's this idea that like it can go further than just sight, that it's like deeper than that in some people, maybe. With him, where he's like didn't care.
Possibly.
But I don't know. Anyways,
I would love to. I'm sure. The thing with these like types of movies where it's just like I'd have to see it like a bunch of times.
Totally.
And like like I'm sure on the internet there's already like
I saw
stuff about that.
That's where I saw I think it was on Tumblr or something. They show Allison Williams' character eating cereal. And she's eating Fruit Loops, and they're in a separate bowl, and then she has her milk in a separate glass, so she's separating the whites from the colored. Yeah. Is what I read online. That was not my...
Which I thought was just to make me hate her more, because I hate people that do that.
Are there people that do that?
I've met one person that does that.
I didn't know that was a human thing.
And I was like, I don't trust you as a person. So I just thought it was just because of that. But that also makes sense.
Yeah, but he's trapped in the room, and the brother's like... Oh, well, they set up the surgery room, and the dad is a neurosurgeon, and he's just, like, scalping the blind guys.
Getting ready to perform the operation to,
switch the brains.
To switch the brains. Which I thought was interesting, that it's, like, not straight up mind control. Like, it is mind control, but it's also, like a lobotomy.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And if you notice, this is something I just thought of, but all of them, after... their like things, they all wear like hats
and
or
scarves.
hair like that covers their forehead.
Yeah, whenever the maid was like getting ready and like she did something with her, because it was very clear that she's wearing a wig, but she like she was doing something with her wig, and I was like, something's up. And as soon as she was in the car like attacking him, I saw it, and I was like, oh, that's sad.
I didn't realize that till
and the grandpa had it. The grandpa had it too, because he was always wearing a hat. His hat falls off at the end, and you see his scar. So sad. And it's sad because it's whenever they have the reveal moment with the blind man like explaining everything. Yeah, he's like, no, you'll still have a little bit of yourself left, and I think that was such a heartbreaking display of like slavery, where it's like you have enough of yourself left to live in agony, to be aware, like you'll be aware, and you'll still have there's nothing you can do about it, and like that's really powerful.
Which even beyond slavery, it's just like it's a mentality, you know, with African Americans, like say in a situation where you get pulled over by a cop and you're being like mistreated, like there's nothing like you're a passenger in that situation, like you have to go through the motions, and like there's nothing you can do about it,
right? Like
that's just the way that like that sometimes is, you know.
Yeah, like you have to almost try to like force yourself to have like an out of body experience to like leave yourself. Like I've read like the last book that I read by Roxane Gay deals with sexuality and rape, and so there are a fair amount of rape scenes in the book, and a lot of it is just like where the female character will just get to a point where she's just like, I'm just gonna try to just totally zone out.
Yeah, and that's a thing. I was in my human sexuality class, and they were talking about that, where people that experience trauma to that degree, when asked about it later, can't really remember what happened, because like when something like that is happening to you, whether it be rape, like violence or whatever, like sometimes
any extreme trauma,
the human mind will like fixate on like a piece of the wall or like a certain thing to kind of like give yourself that out of body experience to like kind of like separate yourself, like to sink yourself into the ground, like in the terms of the movie, so you don't have to like deal with the situation, right?
And what a crazy protective mechanism that human beings have to be able to do that completely. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, did you hear how like women can shut down their like vaginas and like not get raped? Did you hear about that?
That was pretty nuts. Yeah.
It was pretty nuts.
That was pretty fucking crazy.
I was mind blown when I found that out.
I don't know why you didn't tell me that.
I mean, I didn't think that you would need that information.
I don't, but it's pretty dope. Anyway, so basically Chris is strapped to the basement.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So Chris is strapped to the basement, and
he's strapped to the basement. He's strapped to a chair.
He's strapped. He's strapped in the basement.
He's a smoker, and he has this weird thing where he likes to tear up the leather, and then he's not. His chest isn't strapped down, so I guess he's just like, I'm gonna put this stuffing in my ear, which was
that's brilliant. How that happened. I was a little confused about that.
That's why at the end of that scene where he like looks at it and he's like, oh, I had got an idea.
Yeah,
that's what that was.
That makes sense. I was wondering about that. But yeah, so at this point he's, he feigns, like that he's asleep for when the brother comes to like pick him up for the operation, and then at this point he just starts fighting his way through the house, weapons shop. So proud of him, but he's like he knocks out the brother, goes down the hallway, stabs the father with a freaking deer that he found on the wall, goes upstairs, sees the mother, and then she's like, the teacup is on the table, which is like what is used to control him.
Yeah, he breaks it. He moves it so fast. I was so proud because it's like so annoying in freaking horror films, and people see the thing and they don't do what they need to do, and it's just like, that's that you like, go for the gun.
Yeah, go for the gun.
Faster than this other person.
Yeah,
who's further away from it than you, who's been walking this whole time with a knife trying to get you as you limp away.
Yeah. They also so he breaks the glass. She tries to stab him. He blocks it with his hand. And I love the I don't know if this was Jordan Peele's part or the actor's part, but I loved his reaction to it. Like, he gets stabbed through the hand,
just like
with a thing.
He pulls a dentist.
He pulls a dentist, and he's just like, God, ow! But also, I'm not gonna deal with this right now.
Super whatever.
Like, he's super annoyed, kind of.
One of the things that I was wondering about that was actually if she was hypnotizing him. Like, if he was starting to shut down. Because after that, he's, like, kind of moving around, like...
Possibly.
And I was wondering if, like, in close proximity, if she was able to, like, do, like, an eye contact thing. Like, yeah, like a Jungle Book thing.
Maybe. Yeah. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, because I thought that for a second, too. I was like, he's so... wait, maybe he's getting hypnotized. Yeah, maybe he's getting... And then the brother pops back up, and then he, like, stabs him in the leg, eventually.
Yeah, so the brother comes back from the basement. They have a struggle for a bit. He stabs him, like, straight up in the knee.
Yeah, and then kicks his head in.
And then kicks his head in.
Like,
for good reason.
I was kind of happy that they didn't show it. Because, like...
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't need to see that.
And that's a funny thing about this movie, is that, like, it really is not a gore movie. Like, at all. There's very little gore in this movie.
Yeah, I do think some people would be very bothered by the brain part.
Fucking don't see a horror movie if you're bothered
That's
by the brain.
True. That's true. Yeah,
but it very much like The Shining, like, it was a very minimalist, and even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which you would think would have a ton of gore, just a lot of implication in the movie. Like, barely shows any blood.
I appreciate all implications.
Yeah. But anyway, so he escapes the house. He finally escapes the house. Begins to drive off.
Hits the maid.
Yeah, so
he runs like the deer from the beginning of the movie right into his car.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, remember how my mom got run over? And no one went to save her. So he gets out of the car and is like, I gotta put her in the car. And then Allison Williams is like, I have a shotgun. And tries to shoot them.
You are blowing through all of this very fast.
Well, yeah, but I feel like the people that are listening to this have seen the movie. You know?
I know, but I want to talk about the...
Around California, rewind.
So
where would you like to start from?
So he frees himself. He gets in the car from the beginning of the movie that they used to capture Lakeith's character.
Yeah, that plays the same music and everything.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's plays the same music and everything. And so yeah, he drives, and boom, hits the lady. And I thought this was like a really cool scene because like it was the third time that we came back to his character, not character quirk and like the way it was like lighthearted, but like
His background,
part of his character where he can't leave those types of things unresolved.
yeah,
Like,
and
he
it's a
needs
totally
closure
understandable reason.
With that, and it
Yeah.
makes sense why he goes back. And like even in the scene, he's just like, I'm so close to freedom. Why am I doing this? And then like
Yeah, also she's a totally crazy person. So.
Yeah. you know, but apparently she reminds him of his mother, so he has even that double thing. It's like, I have to go back, so he goes back and saves her, brings her in the car with him, and as I think, before that happens, like as he drives off, Allison Williams' character comes out with like a rifle or something.
No, she does that right after he picks up the maid and puts her in the car, because otherwise he would have died. Totally.
Okay, cool. But so yeah, he picks up Maid. They start to drive off. Maid wakes up, goes crazy, makes them crash into a tree.
Very important note. When he puts the maid in the car and drives away, Allison Williams' character, Rosie, yells, "Grandma."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to go into that, or?
Yeah, so earlier in the film, the dad, Rosie's dad, says, "Oh, I know it looks bad that we have these people, these African Americans helping us, but we hired them to take care of my parents, and we just couldn't leave them. So it's like they literally did help with the grandparents.
Yeah,
and they are their grandparents now.
Yeah, straight up.
So sad.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's part that kind of like I missed a little bit, but you explained that to me on the way back. But yeah, so like the grandma wakes up and is like, "You ruined everything," and like crashes them into a tree. At this point, they wake up. Grandma's deep sixed, iced. She is dead. And then Rosie comes out with like a rifle and begins shooting at Chris. And Chris is trying to get away. And he's limping away, and I believe one of the groundskeeper comes up, who's supposed to be her grandfather, the same way the grandmother is her grandmother.
Yeah.
Comes up and tackles him, and they're having their struggle for a little bit, and then Chris does the thing that he did previously in the movie and like flashes the guy,
just like Rear Window.
And it was really cool because this character had like a thing where it's just like, he is like free for a moment, and like his nose starts bleeding, which I thought Rose would like catch on that, but she didn't.
Also like he's tackled a guy to the ground, so there's all that blood.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he kind of like they share like a thing, and he like kind of plays along. It's like, "Oh, I must kill you. Give me the gun so I can kill him." Yeah. Like he's still in mind control.
And that says a lot about someone that can like be under mind control and then switch back to like helping someone else that fast. So it's just
super
like,
cool.
Well, I hate myself and I know what I have to do.
Yeah.
I'll save you.
Boom.
Yeah.
And then acts like he's in mind control, shoots Rosie, like bam, and then promptly shoots himself.
Yeah. It's sad to how quick he came to like not wanting to live with himself.
Yeah, which is completely understandable because I imagine that'd be pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
But
Rosie's not dead.
Rosie's not dead. She goes for the gun.
Like an idiot. Like, why did you think you're still going to be able to fire a shotgun when you have a bullet in your stomach?
Well,
and you're laying on the ground.
Rose don't take no shit.
Yeah.
But so she, she's trying to go for the gun. Chris is like, "Oh no. And we were in the theater, and he's at this point choking Rose, like, "Oh please, I love you so much, please." And he's like choking her, and like I think I did like a little commentary to myself. I was just like, "Oh shut the fuck up. Oh, go to sleep. Oh, go to sleep." Because like I felt like Chris in that moment was just like, "Oh no, die. No, we're not having any part of that."
Remember when he started doing that to me?
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you go to sleep every night, and how.
No.
Oh god damn it. Fucked up. But so yeah, he's choking out Rosie. And a character we didn't talk about much about in this podcast, but was absolutely hilarious, was Chris's friend, who's a TSA agent.
What a light in the darkness.
A light in the darkness, this guy.
I love the scene when he goes to the police.
Yeah.
That was great.
I felt like in that scene, like, he was just straight up, like, Jordan Peele going to different, like, executives in Hollywood. It's like, that sounds stupid.
Yeah.
And he's just like, they're all just, like, laughing at him.
Yeah.
But anyway, reveal. But he's choking out Rosie on top of Rosie. She's bleeding out with another dead body next to him. And then you see police sirens come up. And then, like, Chris, I feel, is, like, the audience in that moment where he's just like, oh my god, through all of this, and I'm going to get taken out by police because all this looks bad, and there's going to be no fair trial.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, Rosie sucks, and she's immediately like, help me.
Yeah, like, and that's, like, a thing where it's, like, it's kind of revealed that she does know the implications of what she's doing because she starts 100%, playing to what she thinks is police officer trying to, like, get Chris, like, killed. Right? But then it's revealed that the police officer is actually just a TSA agent who is his friend, and they drive off and live happily ever after with his friends. Like, I told you not to do it.
I also think maybe with her, like, knowledge of how to manipulate situations is, like, how to manipulate your privilege into more, you know, like, absolutely. How to manipulate, like, if you're pretty or if you're
like, playing it up,
so, like, have that moment where she, especially whenever Rob, the friend, calls Chris's phone, and she knows that he's gonna be recording it, so she's like, oh, you know how we used to hang out all the time?
Yeah, like trying to get him into it.
Yeah. And she's able to switch so fast is so interesting. Because I know people like that, where they're like, I'm such an angel. Actually, I'm a demon. Yeah. And it's like, oh, God.
I love that his character was just, like, not stupid. Like, he's played up to be, like, really stupid. But, like, even he is, like, no one in this movie felt dumb, which I appreciated.
Right. That was really nice. Like, they all did, as Jordan Peele, like, wrote them to do very human things and, like, self-perseverance and being able to, like, do what you need to do in the situation.
Absolutely.
And, like, building, like, how he knew that the brother was going to kick the door again. He, like, built off of what he knew. Yeah. And he was able to work through that as, like, a normal person would. They wanted... just forget these, like, crazy things. Like, I understand under pressure you're gonna forget things, but like, come on now.
Yeah, and that's just a testament to his writing. I honestly can't wait to see more because he has said through the success of this one, he has, like, a lot of other script ideas that he is I guess gonna start writing now, which I fully accept with open arms because this movie was outstanding. I give it I'm going to give it a 9.9 now. I'm going to raise that extra little point. 9.9.
It will break you down. In a couple days, it will be 10.
Yeah, it breaks one day. But what would you give this movie?
I would give it... I want to say a 10, but maybe a 9.9.
Okay. For what was your 1.1?
I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. Well, anyway, I would Get Out, an amazing movie. Could not recommend.
Get out and go see the movie.
Mary, I didn't know you worked on a marketing team. I didn't know you worked for a marketing agency. Do you work for the Get Out marketing? Do you?
I do.
Can I get a quote on that?
I do it for free. That's why I'm poor.
Thank you very much. Well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. We'll see you next time on whatever this is called.
We'll see you next time we see a movie.
We'll see you next time.
For a while because we're poor.
Very poor. See you next time we see a movie.
See you next time we see a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we won't see them because we'll hear. Y'all will hear from us next time we see a movie.
See a movie and see you later.